In the summer of 1915, as the First World War battered Europe, Claude Debussy took his family to the seacoast at Normandy, far from the hostilities. Battling colon cancer, Debussy had been unable to work for many months. He needed a place to go with his wife and young daughter to try and recuperate and compose again. A friend offered the use of a villa in the seaside resort town of Pourville-sur-Mer, a charming village on the Normandy coast, and Debussy jumped at the chance. It was not Debussy's first visit to Pourville, but the 3 months there in the summer of 1915 were to be some of his most productive. According to Debussy's publisher, Jacques Durand, a chamber music performance at Concert d'Oran in 1914 had reawakened Debussy's interest in chamber music after a long hiatus. Debussy hadn't published any works for a small ensemble since his string quartet of 1893. Now, with Durand's encouragement, he was to embark on an ambitious set of 6 sonatas. In the beautiful surroundings of Normandy, Debussy would turn his attention to the project. On July 12, 1915, the Debussys arrived in Pourville. 10 days later, with the work on the 6 sonatas for various instruments well underway, Debussy wrote to Durand saying, "I am relearning about music." Debussy insisted that alongside the title, the music would indicate composed by Claude Debussy, musicien français. It was a declaration of national pride in a time of war, the only time that Debussy ever referred to himself as a French musician and not a composer. There were other symbols of wartime national pride in Debussy's work that summer. Debussy wrote to Durand about the sonata, "I think of the youth of France, wantonly mown down by those culture merchants, and of its contribution to our heritage, now forever lost to us. The music I'm writing will be a secret homage to them. What's the use of a dedication? However you look at it, it's the result of egoism in a state of uncertainty, and that won't bring anyone back to life." The war and France's future were at the center of thoughts for Debussy and the rest of France in the summer of 1915. Alongside the cello sonata, Debussy worked on En Blanc et Noir for 2 pianos, in which he explicitly quoted the Lutheran hymn Ein feste Burg, "A mighty fortress is our God," in the second movement as a symbol of the militants of Germany, and the Marseillaise in the third movement as a symbol of French national pride. Energized by the sea, Debussy worked on the sonata for cello and piano with uncharacteristic speed. He wrote, "I'm composing like a man possessed, or one who must die the next morning." By August 5th, the sonata was complete. Debussy again wrote to Durand, "The sonata for cello and piano will reach you, perhaps, before this letter. It's not for me to judge its excellence, but I like its proportions, and it is almost classical in form, in the good sense of the word." It had been suggested that Debussy had intended to represent the commedia dell'arte figure of Pierrot in the cello sonata. Debussy's lifelong fascination with Pierrot could be evidence for such a claim. Some have gone as far as to suggest that a title, Pierrot Fell Out with the Moon, had originally appeared in an early version only to be later scratched out by Debussy. But no direct evidence of any connection between the cello sonata and the Pierrot character exists. The idea may be more of an invention of the cellist Louis Rousseau than Debussy himself. Rousseau, an acquaintance of Debussy, was an early champion of the sonata. He took the liberty of distributing program booklets connecting the sonata to Pierrot at his performances of the piece. Upon learning of this, Debussy was incensed and angrily denied any connection between the sonata and the character of Pierrot. The first public performance of the cello sonata was given in March of 1917 by Joseph Salmon with the composer at the piano.
The whole work only lasts about 10 or 11 minutes. But in those 10 or 11 minutes, there's so much drama and adventure. The second movement, I always think almost begins like someone tuning up a guitar. And it's just a curious movement. I mean, there's markings in it like ironique and quick changes. It's always elusive and changing on a dime. And this connects directly into the third movement, which has this nervous and effervescent energy to it. And my favorite moment in the whole piece comes in the third movement, in this sort of hypnotic, dreamlike section where time stops. And this comes to a big culmination at the end when material from the first movement comes back, and that's how the work ends.